Welcome everyone to the Central Elgin's first regular meeting of 2026. If you're able, please join me in standing for the national anthem. Thank you. The municipality of Central Elgin acknowledges that it's located on the lands of the McKee Treaty that was signed by the Wyandot and Anishinaabe nations, including ancestors of Chippewa, the Thames, First Nations. It is also traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Adirondack, and Mississauga nations. These First Nations continue to provide ongoing stewardship of the land and waters in the municipality of Central Elgin. At this time, I'll remind Council of any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Okay, seeing none, adoption of the previous minutes. Councillor Bachman, Councillor Griffin.
The motion reads, moved by Councillor Bachman, seconded by Councillor Griffin, that the minutes for the regular meeting of Council dated Monday, December 8th, 2025 be adopted.
All in favor? Carries. And correspondence requiring action. Mover and seconder. Councillor Bachman. Councillor Griffin. Any questions or comments on that? No? Okay, all in favor? Motion carries. And receive for information, correspondence received from Chris Phibbs, board member of the Port Stanley Village Association. Mover and a seconder to accept that. Councillor Bachman, Councillor Connors, any questions or comments on that?
So the motion for that would be moved by Councillor Bachman, seconded by Councillor Connors, that correspondence item number 1 be received for information.
All in favor? Motion carries. And down to Director of Planning and Engineering, DPE 0126, Hammond Drain request for minor improvement. Mover and seconder, Councillor Griffin, Councillor Connors. Anybody speaking to this? No?
Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brooks. No questions or concerns? Okay.
So the motion for that one will be moved by Councillor Griffin, seconded by Councillor Connors, that the drainage works proceed as prescribed, as described in the attached request from David Karn, and that Curtis McIntyre, P.Eng. of K Smart Associates Limited, be appointed to prepare a report under Section 78 of the Drainage Act for the Hammond Drain.
All in favor? Motion carries. And DPE 0226, County of Elgin Transportation Master Plan. Mover and seconder. Councillor Connors, Councillor Bachmann.
So the motion for that is moved by Councillor Connors, seconded by Councillor Bachmann, that the staff comments regarding the 2026 Elgin County Transportation Master Plan attached to Schedule A to report DPE 226 be endorsed, and that staff be directed to submit the comments to the County of Elgin within the comment notice period.
Any questions or comments? Councillor Graham?
Through the chair to staff, just wondering, have they been in touch at all to ask for any input or any consultation, the county?
Mr. Chair, through you to Councillor Graham, there have been various levels of consultation with the lower tiers. When this project originally kicked off, I want to say back in around 2021, there was a high level of engagement with the lower tiers. After the project was picked back up in 2024, 2025, there hasn't been as much engagement with the lower tier municipalities. We've had the chance to comment on a couple different things, cycling being one part of it, as well as the opportunity to comment on the final draft. There wasn't a lot of consultation regarding the road rationalization, which is one of the biggest pieces of this. The county staff didn't arrange a meeting or go through that road rationalization with the lower tier staff once the project was picked back up and just before it was taken to county council for approval.
Follow up, Councillor Graham.
Just a quick follow-up, Mr. Brooks. Did you see in the final draft here, did you see a reflection of any of the input that Central Elgin specifically staff had given? Even in the early days of feedback?
Well, it's difficult to say. Back in when we originally were consulted a few years ago, staff had concerns about the road rationalization and the associated costs that would be passed down to the lower tier municipalities. I don't know that anything changed between then and getting county council approval for that road rationalization. I know when their staff had the opportunity to comment on the cycling plan, some of those comments were taken by county staff and addressed through the master plan.
And I have had conversation with the warden as well on the transportation master plan and also how that money will play out between upper and lower tiers. Because if we're downloading a certain amount onto the lower tier, there should be a savings at the upper tier to offset that for our taxpayers. So that is something that we are following up with on the county level. Councillor Bachmann?
Thank you. I'm just curious, is this going to affect staffing levels at all? Are we going to need additional staff to fill a lot of the expected workload?
We don't expect that it'll have an impact on municipal staff here. Most of the downloads that will be taking place are already maintained by municipal staff, so there will be no change there. It's really just a change in the funding model, where previously all the maintenance for those county roads and the bridges that are going to be downloaded were funded by the County of Elgin. That burden will now come to the municipal taxpayers to be paid for through the municipal budget.
And it's also important to figure out where the reserves end up for those roads and those bridges, and we're working on that. Councillor Graham.
One more question, Mr. Brooks. Have you looked at, or has any of the staff looked at proportionally how much more it would cost versus the amount of upkeep on those roads? Like, have we crunched any of those numbers to go back to county with by the 16th at all, or no? Or just the ideas of it?
I believe you're asking the total say if they're downloading 10 kilometers of road, what the total maintenance costs of those 10 kilometers of road are. We haven't, we've been trying to work with the county to calculate what that was. I wanted to bring that number to council tonight, but we weren't able to get the information that we need to calculate that number. But it's expected it's probably somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 per year.
Follow up, Councillor Graham.
And I guess this is relative to, is that the cost that it actually took? My questions, and I'm sure you can't answer it right now, but my question would be, is that the cost that it actually was that we were not invoking, I can't think of the word, but how much it cost us to maintain those roads versus how much the discrepancy between what we were actually spending and what we were getting reimbursed? Because I know that there was that gap. And did we ever address that gap? Did we ever get that gap filled?
To my knowledge, there a funding gap between what we actually spend for maintenance on county roads and what we're allocated from the county. There still is a gap there. Hasn't been addressed. There may be the opportunity through the next road maintenance agreement to address that gap. But when it gets back to where that estimate of maintenance costs, the $30,000 to $50,000 I put out there, that's just based strictly on the funding that we get from the county, not what we actually spend on it.
And then just one part I'd touch on too is part of that funding gap, Mr. Brooks, we do a better job at maintaining our roads than what's required and keep our residents safer. Is there, when you look at the difference in what we spend and what we get reimbursed from the county, would part of that be in that added service?
One could argue that from time to time the municipality may provide a higher level of service than what's required through the minimum maintenance standard, but I wouldn't suggest that that's what creates that funding gap. There are a lot of overhead costs that don't get taken into account when calculating the funding formula. So it's just basically based on kilometer of road, basically. But there's a lot of overhead things that aren't taken into consideration when calculating that number.
Okay, thank you. And some of these roads that we're looking at taking over have recently been upgraded, I believe, as well.
There are some of the roads, Fruit Ridge line west of Sunset, for example, was recently upgraded. That being said, I would remind council that it goes beyond what the condition is today. You know, 15, 20 years down the road, we're going to be doing a capital project to repave that road or rebuild these roads as time goes along. So it's more than just the condition of it today. It's also carrying those life cycle costs for the duration of the asset's life.
Thank you. Any further questions? All right, call the vote. All in favor? Motion carries. Next, DPE 0326, application for consent 485 George Street. Mover and seconder. Councillor Connors, Councillor Bachman.
Deputy Mayor Noble, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Connors, seconded by Councillor Bachman, that the application for consent related to 485 George Street, Port Stanley, be supported subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix 3 of Report DPE 326, and that staff be directed to forward a copy of Council's resolution to the Elgin County Land Division Committee for consideration.
Okay, questions or concerns? Okay, all in favor? Motion carries. DPE 0426, application for consent 46484 Sparta Line. Mover and seconder, Councillor Griffin, Councillor Connors.
Deputy Mayor Noble, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Griffin, seconded by Councillor Connors, that the application for consent related to 46484 Sparta Line be supported subject to the conditions outlined in Appendix 3 of Report DPE 426, and that staff be directed to forward a copy of Council's resolution to the Elgin County Land Division Committee for consideration.
Okay, any questions or concerns? No? All right, seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor? And I guess at this time I got onto the agenda and I failed to introduce Don McLeod, our CAO, our Chief Administrative Officer. I'm sorry about that. I get focused on the task at hand, and we'd already chatted, and I just assumed you were here and everybody knew who you were, and I apologize for that. Welcome. Okay, bylaws. Are we doing all these together? Okay. Bylaw 2026-01, appointment of deputy treasurer. Bylaw 2026-02, appointment of clerk. And bylaw 2026-03, appointment of deputy clerk. Mover and seconder. Councillor Bachman, Councillor Griffin.
Deputy Mayor Noble, the motion reads, moved by Councillor Bogman, seconded by Councillor Griffin, that bylaws 2026-01, 2026-02, and 2026-03 be read a first time and finally passed.
Any questions? Comments? I'll call the vote. All in favor? Motion carries. And at this time, I'll ask for a mover and seconder to proceed into closed. Councillor Connors, Councillor Bachman.
Motion is moved by Councillor Connors, seconded by Councillor Bogman. The council proceed into closed session at 7:17 p.m. in order to address a matter pertaining to advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and closed session minutes for the regular meeting of council dated December 8th, 2025.
All in favor? We're in closed.